When will Activision Blizzard content start hitting Game Pass, and what's that going to look like for Call of Duty? Is it going to be worse other places or exclusives? Well, Phil Spencer sat down and did an interview that I want to look at. I want to react to the video a little ways into it. It's on the official Xbox channel. Phil Spencer on Activision Blizzard, King, and Xbox. It's an official Xbox podcast where he's being interviewed. We're going to pick it up right here where he was asked about what the timing is going to look like for bringing things to Game Pass because of how it worked with Bethesda immediately having that backlog. If you like this kind of reaction content, hit subscribe. Check out my main channel where I stream live Reforged Gaming as well.
When we finished Bethesda, there was this great moment. We were able to put a bunch of the back catalog games in, celebrate their history. The truth of the matter is, with Activision Blizzard King, that the regulatory process took so long, and frankly, there was a lot of uncertainty in that process up until really a week before we closed, or the week of, when the CMA finally came down to their decision, that we weren't able to get in and work with it's mostly Activision and Blizzard in this case, on that back catalog work. So now that the deal is closed, we're starting that work, but there is work. And I think the Activision Twitter handle or X handle, whatever we're calling it, did put out a statement. I can't call it that,
but nobody wants to call it that. Let's just keep calling it Twitter. It doesn't make any sense. They posted with their X account. What?
Twitter handle did put out something that talked about 2024. I think that's accurate. There's no. I would love it if there was some kind of secret celebration drop that's coming in the next couple of weeks. There's not. It's definitely when we think about the new games that are there, I would be straight with people, right? If we were going to put them in the subscription this year, I would tell people.
Well, and I think the important thing here is he's saying that the 2024 thing is accurate. So a lot of people were speculating, it's going to come right around the corner, right? We're going to get some COD. They're going to put old CODs on Game Pass. It's going to take some time, right? They're not just going to immediately pull the trigger on this. There's other spots in this interview that I'm excited to kind of comment on and react to, talking about the daunting nature of this task. I had already said that in my coverage that this is going to be a pretty significant task, just deciding what to do with a catalog of this size. I think in my upload about when will Call of Duty hit Game Pass, I put that on my Reforged Gaming channel. I think in that upload I said this is not going to be as easy as just flipping a switch. They could clearly overwhelm the user base, give you choice paralysis. I think a rollout, trickle-out makes more sense. The real question would be day and date, which I don't think he touches on in this interview. When are you going to see Call of Duty hitting day and date? This is more about backlog coming to Game Pass. Well, there's a mountain of it, and they got to do it at the right time and in the right way.
And I know there'll be some disappointment about that. This acquisition is definitely long-term. So the fact that we're not hitting day one with a bunch of games dropping in to Game Pass is a little bit of a downer, but I'm very excited about the future. And I just want to be straight with people that's where we are.
There you go, addressing the rumors. Now let's talk about Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 coming out next month. Very excited. I played the beta over the weekend.
The open beta, what did you think?
It's very interesting getting humbled by your reaction time going down every single year.
Okay, young man.
It's very clear that
I count my reaction time in like tens of seconds now.
Well, people are getting really good at the game, but to that point, like people are really excited about it. And I think for players who may not be playing on Xbox, they want to know, what does this mean for them on their platform? Like, is Xbox going to see exclusive DLC, early release, things like that? So what can you tell players who are looking to play Call of Duty on other platforms?
And when we say other platforms, I think we're talking about PlayStation?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I know people don't like Phil. People think Phil lies. People think Phil's misleading or whatever. I think there's been some times where he's not been very honest and on the up and up, like when he said there was no hardware problem with the Series S. He made it seem like the issues with Baldur's Gate 3 was Larian's fault, and then like 24 hours later, they walked back on parity, okay? I think Phil says what needs to be said in the moment. So I do appreciate the fact here that he's like, listen, we can talk about the fact that Call of Duty's coming to PlayStation, okay? Like, I'll be very interested to see, though, I haven't really watched this in a scrutinous way. Does he say this in a way that only really addresses Modern Warfare 3, or is he talking about Call of Duty for the foreseeable future? Let's see what he says.
That other one?
Yeah.
I mean, because I think the PC players, their PC is unique, and I want it to feel like it's part of the overall gaming platform that Xbox focuses on. We've been on that journey for a while with our first party and our Xbox app on PC. There's a lot of work for us to continue to do there. For Call of Duty players, on PlayStation and in the future on Nintendo, I want you to feel 100% part of the community. I don't want you to feel like there's content you're missing out, there's skins you're missing out, there's timing that you're missing out on. That's not the goal. The goal is 100% parity across all platforms as much as we can for launching content. I say as much as we can on parity because clearly some platforms have resolution and frame rate differences just based on perf. But there's nothing else. Like we have no goal of somehow trying to use Call of Duty to get you to buy an Xbox console. So it is, I want the Call of Duty Nation to feel supported across all platforms. We've been on the other side of some of those skins and times, even this beta, like it wasn't on Xbox the first week. Like I don't think that helps the community. I don't think that helps the game.
I actually agree with him here. I've never liked PlayStation being like, oh, you can play the beta with us first, or you get the skins with us first, or you get this with us first. For a live service game, I don't think that's helpful to the game or the community. I actually agree with him on this point, which means that they're going to have to kind of play by those rules then if he's thinking that that's not good for the community, if it's not good for the game. What he's saying here is it seems to me he's being very sweeping that the goal is not to leverage Call of Duty to get you to buy their console. And I think he can say that really strongly because I don't think Xbox cares about selling consoles anymore. It's not important to them. What's important to them is growing their ecosystem and having tons of content out there making money for them. Okay. So that's kind of like a quasi ecosystem publisher role. That's kind of where I see them landing. So I actually think what he's saying here is 100% true. There is no future where they're like, if we do this with Call of Duty, we're going to sell more consoles. They don't care about selling consoles. They intentionally constrained console production to funnel hardware to the cloud. They are not at all worried about getting you to buy their console. And I know that sounds harsh, but it's true. They no longer give a rip about their console sales. They're trying to grow their ecosystem and work, again, as I said, as a quasi-ecosystem publisher where they're generating tons of money with games like Minecraft and Call of Duty, and they're getting you in their ecosystem on the cloud or mobile. I continue to think that the PC audience is going to be extremely reticent to ever be on something like Game Pass. Steam is a huge barrier there. Even if they somehow got Game Pass on Steam, or maybe they were able to acquire Steam, those all seem like absolute pipe dreams, but let's just say they would happen. I still don't think that user base is going to respond to Game Pass. They're going to be like, I don't need a subscription because I want to own my games. I don't need a subscription to try out games because Steam lets me refund games if I don't like them. The only way they would be able to do that is if they bought Steam and got rid of the refund policy, and that would not go well for them. So I don't see that ever happening on PC. I see their inroad being mobile, and I think he talks about that more in this interview. So I don't think they have any plans to mess up Call of Duty on PlayStation. I really don't. I think they want to make a ton of money on it, and the best way to do that is to keep the PlayStation fans happy.
And so it's the focus if you're a PlayStation player, you're a Nintendo player, PC player, or an Xbox console player. I want you to feel like 100% part of the Call of Duty Nation.
Love that.
Yeah. So let's talk about, we were talking about the rumors of when, things might appear on Game Pass. The other sort of like set of rumors is, or speculation out there.
Rumors.
There's only the two, right? Is like,
two.
Are you bringing back Guitar Hero or Tony Hawk, or would you have, Infinity Ward work on this Xbox IP or franchise or something like that? And that stuff's been, there was 20 months to think about those types of things.
Yeah.
But now that officially the team is joined as of Friday, so you have 9 studios, there's a wealth of IP from Activision. Like, how are you thinking about these new teams, these new franchises, or new to us franchises? Like, how do you even take all of that in?
Yeah, the first thing, as I kind of mentioned before, is to go spend time with the teams. Because I just don't think that a team working on something that isn't their passion leads to the best result. So I might have my list of...
You mean like Redfall? How they didn't want to make the game and they hoped that you canceled it? I think he's speaking very indirectly there about Redfall.
Things from my memories in history that I want to see made again. Everybody will, right? When I just think about, not just about Activision Blizzard King, you add in Bethesda, you add in Xbox's history, Rare, like the amount of franchises that we now have in our portfolio is It's kind of inspiring. It's daunting. I feel that we have to be a great custodian for the content that we touch. These are memories from people on different platforms, different decades. And
this is one of my concerns that we talked about in a stream about Halo's uncertain future, and I talked about what happened with 343 and how like half the staff was on contract. Microsoft will not let contract workers exceed 18 months, and how that was terrible for Halo. And it's terrible for 343. And I said, unless that policy changes, I don't think 343 is ever going to get to a stronger position with respect to creative and efficiency and having a cohesive vision for a game over the life of its project. I have great concerns about all this property because if Microsoft, I'm not talking about Phil, I'm not talking about Xbox, I'm talking about Microsoft. If Microsoft's corporate policy infects and sort of, in my mind, ruins a lot of these studios over the next couple of years. That's not an Xbox hate thing. That's not an Halo or like Phil Spencer hate thing. It's a Microsoft problem, and I think that dividing line is lost on so many people when these discussions happen. You have to see that Microsoft is very, very software corporately driven, and I don't think it works in the game creation realm. So he's like, oh, it's daunting. We got to be a good custodian. There's a lot of memories here. You're right. And if they start hurting the studios and the franchises and the projects in the way that they've hurt their own, what they've done to Halo, that's their own property. And look at what they've done to it. Look at what they did to 343. Like, you wouldn't even make exceptions for one of your own studios who is housing your most well-known piece of property over the years, like your most iconic character and piece of property. If they're not willing to make exceptions and really help 343 in that situation, they were totally fine with half the staff being on a contract attrition rate of 18 months. That is truly worrying for the rest of the content and the rest of these studios. And again, this is a Microsoft problem, not an Xbox problem.
And I want to make sure that when we're going back and visiting something, that we do it with our complete ability, a motivated team that wants to go work on something and make a difference, not just create something for financial gain or create something for a PR announcement and not deliver on the price. So I'm going to start with the teams. And
it sounds so much like when he says that, he is self-criticizing what they've been doing. I genuinely think when he says stuff like that, he's saying, I wish we would stop doing this, right? I wish we would stop showing stuff that wasn't accurate, Forza Motorsport. I wish we would start putting stuff out just for the sake of announcing it, like when they announced Redfall, right? Like, he is literally self-reflecting on the mistakes they've made, and I think the reason he's saying that those things are bad is because that's probably a pushback he's continued to give, is like, we don't need to do something just for the PR announcement. Like, hey, here are all the games coming out in the next 12 months, and then like 12 of them don't even make it. So again, I continue to feel like Phil Spencer is very frustrated by things that he is sort of made to do that are ultimately self-destructive and bad for the brands. Now, if it's all his call and he's been the one doing all of this, like the one email seemed to indicate they were really worried about 2022 and it was like all hands on deck, let's go throw some money around, let's go get some exclusives. I think that gave birth to the 2022 showcase where they said, here's everything coming in the next 12 months. They were kind of panicking about how dry 2022 was going to be. If that was his decision and his baby, maybe he's finally self-reflecting on that and saying, we can't do that ever again. They didn't really do that this year. They went more for trailers than release dates. They went more for, cinematics to wow us as opposed to making promises. So maybe they are trying to shift away from what they've done in the past that has hurt them so much. From Forza Motorsport to that showcase, they just continue to promise things that don't happen.
And what are they passionate about? That's why I'm excited to go on these visits. And then we'll look at it. Like I think we've done an okay job as Xbox. I don't think we've done kind of an A+ job on looking at our franchises and revisiting them. It's always a trade-off between what do you do that's new and going back and doing something. I do think with Game Pass, we have the ability to maybe pick a couple franchises every year and almost do like a revisited. I just made up that term, so it's not a brand.
It's not on a box.
It's not on a
Yeah, he doesn't want to say remake or remaster because those are stigmatized terms, so he's going to say revisited.
box. But, I tease about things like Hexen just because I remember playing it as a kid. I have no plan for that. But I do think when you look across all of the franchises and are a part of our teams, there's an opportunity for us to go back, even if it's just to recognize the moment and what those things meant in gaming's history and do something right with it, make it available to people through Game Pass. I think there's an opportunity. There's not a plan for that, but there's an opportunity. If teams want to go back and revisit some of the things that we have and do kind of a full focus on it, I'm going to be all in on that, because I think
Well, and I talked about this recently in one of my live streams, that as far as, no, it was in an upload about here's everything they own now, right? And we combed through a Game Informer article that walked down through all of the franchises that they now own. And I said, listen, I don't think a lot of these old franchises pull. I don't think they'll be given the financial green light, because it's like, this isn't going to make an impact. No one cares about these games anymore. They're just pure nostalgia. He seems to be indicating the opposite here. Like, look, if a team comes to me and says, we really want to do something with Tony Hawk, or we really want to do something with, some super old classic game, he's saying he's going to let them. We'll see if that happens. I happen to think they're going to measure it and say this will have zero financial impact on our presence and on Game Pass, so we're not going to do it. So we'll see if this ever actually comes to fruition with a lot of the older titles that they now own.
There's just an amazing trove of things that we can go and touch again. It doesn't have to just be about Activision and Blizzard. Like I said, when you look across all the portfolio, I think about things like the Quake 2 remaster. It just came out from it. I thought that was awesome, right? They did a real good job revisiting a game, making it current, but also not leaving the history behind.
If you haven't played that, you're missing out, especially if you played it back in the day like I did. I played a lot of Quake 2 online, but my gosh, what a faithful treatment of that classic.
So I'd love to see more things like that.
So you mentioned the trove of content, the treasure trove, and you've mentioned Hexen.
Yeah.
I think so. It fits. But are there, Hexen's maybe a deep cut for some because it's a shooter from the 90s, and we obviously have a very wide-ranging community. Are there any other games or franchises, just for you personally, deep in the vault that we can now potentially explore that you're just personally excited for people to discover for the first time or maybe rediscover?
I hadn't really thought about that question. Specific on Activision and Blizzard, there's some moments in Activision's history. You mentioned Tony Hawk, you mentioned Guitar Hero, even things like Skylanders, or that were moments where the teams kind of innovated outside of expectation. What do you mean I'm going to carry a plastic guitar and plug it into my console and play? Like, that's never going to work until it worked. And then everybody said, well, of course that was going to work. Skylanders kind of the same way. For me personally, though, when I think about the franchises, I kind of go back to things like some of the old Infocom things that were, like you just asked for me personally, part of my youth, the Text Adventure Zork, those kind of things. I think about King's Quest. I thought they did a really nice job. But like those, the Sierra catalog, the Infocom catalog, just because of my age, like those things speak to me because they were moments in my gaming career, my gaming kind of experience that really meant something. And I love those. When you think about Blizzard and all these things that they've done,
and a lot of the titles he mentioned are exactly what I'm talking about. What are you going to do with King's Quest? Like, that's just not going to move the needle, I don't think. Because you have to consider his age bracket, my dad's age bracket. I feel like a lot of those guys just aren't on console anymore. They're not gaming anymore as much. Some of them have maybe sort of aged out. But even if they haven't, I just don't know if that's a strong draw. They're just so far back there.
Amazing franchise, StarCraft. Like, it was in the video that the teams did, which I know there's been some discussion about should we have done a video for an acquisition or not. But there's just some amazing franchises in there. Most important is that we treat them with the respect that they deserve, and we don't turn it into some way for us just to kind of, like I said, a PR moment or something else.
100%. By the way, I almost cried at that video. That was a cool video that we put out on Friday. So come on, everybody.
I like the video. I saw some
awesome.
people.
I thought it was awesome. But
I actually thought the video was great. I'm going to go ahead and the reaction here. If you want to watch the full interview, it'll be linked below. I actually thought the video was spectacular. Like, I'm very, very critical of Xbox and am not like a huge fan of them this generation. I feel like they've been pretty disappointing. But that video was pretty amazing because like the music and the way they put it all together, I was like, oh man, y'all are really flexing, on the fact that you have a lot of property now, which led me to say, On my live channel, it's been re-uploaded to my rundown channel. I basically said, listen, you got no excuse now, right? You got no excuse. So I don't expect to ever hear again that like Xbox is having a hard time because of PlayStation exclusives or Nintendo. No, you have more property, more studios, more games, more franchises than any other platform has ever had in the history of gaming. So no more excuses. We deserve and should see excellence after this much has been consolidated, bought, and siloed up. So I expect that. If you liked this video, make sure and hit subscribe. Check out my channel where I stream live over at Reforge Gaming, and I'll see you in the next video.